Hi everybody and welcome back to my channel. It's Russell with Ink and Paper Blog. How are you today? I am doing very well on this Thursday. It is rainy and cloudy and perfect reading weather. Blanche is joining me for this video. It turns out every time I try to shoot a video she thinks that it must be lap time. I have the windows open, so I apologize for the noise, and because of sort of the dark cloudy weather I have really strange light going on. So, sorry. Tuesday was my event at East Bay Booksellers with Jesse Chaffee and Jeff Miranda, and it was fantastic. I did tape the whole thing, so I'm going to try to put a video together. It will probably be pretty long. I know it won't be for everybody, but they were fantastic. They talked about their books. They can give you insight into their novels. And I'll actually even put in the parts where they read from their books so you guys can kind of see how that part went. It was really great. I want to thank my husband for doing all of the tech work. That was fantastic. I want to thank Joss over at Squibbles Reads for showing up and supporting me. I know it was a long day for you, and I really appreciate it. And then I need to thank Sue. Sue is one of my viewers that showed up, and I got to meet her, and it was so exciting. And she bought me this fantastic t-shirt, and then she brought the dog some treats. So Sue, thank you so much. It was lovely to meet you, and I am so thankful that you came to visit. Now, today's video is going to be a very full book haul, and I'm going to try to go fast. I'm going to try to summarize, but I'm going to probably read a number of blurbs because a lot of the books are more complicated than just like a short 3-sentence summary, but they all sound so fantastic. And so get out your pen and paper, get out your Goodreads, and get ready to write down some book titles and some authors, okay? The first book I'm going to tell you about is Kokoro by Natsume Soseki, or Soseki. I apologize, my Japanese is awful. It's non-existent, really. This is originally written in Japanese and published in 1916, and this one is translated by Meredith McKinney. It's a Penguin Classics edition. This is the story of Sensei and his student. They meet randomly, and Sensei starts to tell the student about his history and the indiscretions of his past, even when he was a student. It's a book about coming to terms with your past, and also as the student comes to terms with his own teacher's past. I'm using a male pronoun. I don't know the gender of the student because I haven't read the novel, so I apologize there. But it's about coming to terms with what you learn about someone that you idolize and what they've done in the past. So that is Kokoro by Natsume Soseki. So I apologize if I totally butchered that Japanese. The next book is What Lies Between Us by Naomi Munaweera. This is actually recommended to me and seen on Joss's channel. I bought this with her. And this is actually a novel set in Sri Lanka, and I don't think I've ever read anything set in Sri Lanka. At least the first part of it is. It says that this is the story of a young girl whose childhood is like any other until it isn't. A cherished friendship is revealed to have a monstrous undertone, and consequences of trauma spell both the end of her childhood and that of a stable home. Her and her mother are then forced to flee to America, where she goes to college in San Francisco. She becomes a nurse, and she marries a man named David. An accidental pregnancy leads to that marriage start to fall apart, and her history and the secrets corrode the marriage, and it unravels, setting the stage for one terrible, unforgivable act. So I think that sounds really good. Thank you, Joss, for recommending What Lies Between Us by Naomi Munaweera. So, yes. We're going to go. We're going to keep going, guys. Now, this novel, which is In the Distance by Hernan Diaz, was actually recommended to me by the bookseller Brad at East Bay Booksellers. So I guess the author had been in their bookstore and they had done an event and he really recommended this. This is a pretty short little blurb. It says that this is about a Swedish immigrant who is in California with no money, and he starts to travel, is it what, east? He travels east in search of his brother, moving on foot against the great current of immigrants pushing west. Driven back again and again, he meets naturalists, criminals, religious fanatics, swindlers, Indians, and lawmen, and exploits turn him into a legend. Diaz defies the conventions of historical fiction and genre, offering a probing look at the stereotypes that populate our past and a portrait of radical forgiveness. So I thought that sounded really, really good. Brad over at East Bay Booksellers highly recommended it, and I think the cover is gorgeous. So that's In the Distance by Hernan Diaz. The next book, totally a cover buy, guys. It is a naked hardback, and it is gorgeous. Kiss Me Someone, Stories by Shepard. And really, I think that the book alone and its beautifulness is enough to purchase it. But it is a collection of short stories, and it deals with some stuff that I think sounds really interesting. It says, Kiss Me Someone is inhabited by women who walk the line between various states. Adolescence and adulthood, stability and uncertainty, selfishness and compassion. Shepard's stories explore what we do to lessen our burdens of sadness and isolation. Her characters, fiercely true to themselves, are caught between their desire to move beyond their isolation and the fear that it's exactly where they belong. Now, come on, guys, this cover, those stories sound very interesting. I know that there's discussions in here about mixed race. There's stories in here about sexuality. There's stories about the powers of sex in and of itself, and that's Kiss Me Someone by Shepard. I'm trying to run through, guys. I'm not even halfway through yet. The next book is How I Became a North Korean, a novel by Krys Lee. Now, I believe Krys Lee is the translator of a book that I purchased. Hold on. Oh, I don't have it right near me. So I'm actually really excited about this book, but this is one where it's a little convoluted in story to kind of shorten down to a few sentences. So, Young Ju is an accomplished student from one of North Korea's most prominent families. Jang Mi, on the other hand, has had to fend for herself since childhood, most recently by smuggling goods across the border. Then there is Danny, a Chinese-American teenager whose quirks and precocious intelligence have long made him an outcast in his California high school. These three disparate lives converge when they flee their homes, encounter one another in a small Chinese town just across the border from North Korea. Now they must fight to survive in a place where danger seems to close in from all sides. Now, does that not sound amazing? That is How I Became a North Korean by Krys Lee. Okay, and then this book I just purchased actually the other night at my event, and that's If Clara by Baillie. Now this book, is this book translated as well? No, I think this was written in English. This book sounds absolutely fascinating. This is the story of Daisy, who gets a book in the mail, a manuscript in the mail, by a woman named Clara. Clara has asked Daisy to pretend to be a Syrian author and pretend to be the person who wrote the book so it can be published. Now, Clara is mentally ill, and her sister, who runs an art gallery, doesn't know that she's written this book. This all comes together. And then there's a piece of art at Julia's gallery that changes Maurice's life. So Maurice is this man. It says, perspectives twist, boundaries between art and life, viewer and object are breached, and all of these stories unfold, collide, and fall into a place in the most unexpected way. I just thought that sounded so good. I read the first 4 or 5 pages at the bookstore. It's got beautiful paper too. And that is If Clara by Baillie. The next book I actually picked up really because of a discussion and by the recommendation of Dan, my husband, and that is a nonfiction novel called Transgender History, The Roots of Today's Revolution by Stryker. We've actually had a lot of conversations in our household on what we can do to help transgender youth and the transgender movement, because it's something that I think is in need of support from all angles and understanding. But we also realize that we don't know much about its history, and so this book kind of just spoke to us as a way for us to educate ourselves about the transgender movement in America. And it's a revised edition, so it's been updated, so it has some of the most modern stuff that's also gone on. And it says that Stryker is an associate professor of gender and women's studies at University of Arizona and is the co-editor of TS2, Transgender Studies quarterly. And so I thought that that would be an interesting book. Dan was super excited about it. We may save to read it until Gay History Month, but it's just one of those things that we thought, you know what, we don't know enough and we should educate ourselves. So that's Transgender History, The Root of Today's Revolution by Susan Stryker. And the cover is really striking. Okay, 4 more. These are the hardbacks, guys. I don't know if you guys have seen this book going around, The Floating World by C. Morgan Babst, but this book has actually been a little bit everywhere because it is a novel that deals with Hurricane Katrina. This is the story of a young girl. Her father is black, her mother is white, and Katrina is moving in, and she refuses to leave her house. Her parents leave her and move on, and while she's in the house, she is attacked and I think left in a coma? She's catatonic because she's the victim of a perpetrator that commits some sort of violence against her that no one really knows. That is all I really need to know about this book. I think it sounds fantastic. I think Katrina is one of those natural disasters that has a lot of stories to tell. And I just think the cover is gorgeous and I'm really interested, and I've read a number of reviews on it that sounded really good. And so that's The Floating World by C. Morgan Babst. The next book I'm going to show you is actually part of my Book of the Month clubs, and it was the one that I was able to purchase early. It actually comes out this month, and that's Beasts of Extraordinary Circumstance by Ruth M.E. Lang. Now, I normally do not choose fantasy novels, but one, this cover, and two, I'm going to read it to you, and it just sounds really super charming. Finding magic in the ordinary. Orphaned, raised by wolves, and the proud owner of a horned pig named Merlin, Whelan Gray knew he wasn't like other people. But when he single-handedly stopped that tornado on a stormy Christmas day in Oklahoma, he realized just how different he actually was. The tornado was the first of many strange events that seemed to follow Whelan from town to town, although he doesn't like to take credit. As amazing as these powers may appear, they tend to manifest themselves at inopportune times and places. From freak storms to trees that appear to grow overnight, Whelan's unique abilities are a curiosity at best, and at worst a danger to himself and the women he loves. But Mary doesn't care. Since Whelan saved her from an angry wolf on her 11th birthday, she's known that a relationship with him isn't without its risks. But as anyone who's met Whelan will tell you, once he wanders into your life, you'll wish he would never leave. So I thought that sounded absolutely charming. That's Beasts of Extraordinary Circumstances by Ruth M.E. Lang. Now the next 2 books have been on BookTube, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time, but this book just came out in America, The Power by Naomi Alderman. As you guys know, this won the Baillie's Women's Prize this year. And I'm glad to get my hands on it because I wanted Stay With Me to win because I love that book. But The Power is the story of a dystopian future where women get the power to shock people with their hands, and it changes the sexual political dynamics. And that's all I really want to know about it. I've heard mixed reviews. I know a lot of people like the setup, but I also know that it's had a little bit of a struggle. People didn't always care about the end, but I think it's actually something that probably holds a lot of power. I know she's sort of mentored by Margaret Atwood, and Margaret Atwood has put her stamp of approval on this book. So I'm excited to get to it myself, and that's The Power by Naomi Alderman. And last but not least is a book that probably needs no introduction, and that is See What I Have Done by Sarah Schmidt. Now, Sarah Schmidt came to Green Apple Books on the Park, and I went and saw her, and she is lovely and amazing. This is a reimagining of the days before Lizzie Borden's parents are killed. Now, Lizzie Borden is a woman who was charged and in the 1800s and tried for the awful murder of her father and stepmother. She was acquitted and let off. Sarah sort of imagines those days up to when the murder occurs. So she was fantastic. My friend Joss of Squirrel Reads says this book has a lot of throw up in it, which I think is an interesting sort of term. But I've heard very good things about it. I know that Simon really liked it. I know that Eric over at Lonesome Reader really liked it. And she was just charming. This is actually a copy. Simon has actually got me a signed copy that is on its way. So I got this copy, and I will be later giving it away as a giveaway on my channel. So, you guys, that is a lot of books. I hope you wrote all the titles down because I am super excited about every single one of them. I hope you are having a fantastic rest of your week and have an amazing weekend ahead. If you are a return subscriber, as always, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. If you are new to my channel, welcome. I hope you like this video and you check out my other ones. Until next time, happy reading, and I'll talk to you later. Bye!